And as I'm walking home, I prayed to God and I said, God, I have to do something different. What I'm doing is not working. At that point, my life really consisted of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. At that point in time, I lost myself. I went down a rabbit hole of self-loathing, self-pity, negativity. I had lost not only my identity, my name, my friend. The universe said, you're done. It's time for you to move on to the stage that we created you for. And I went into that, but the mindset behind it was more of, how can I do this for a greater service to others versus to myself?
Did you have any fear? If so, how did you overcome it? Or how do you help people that you work with take action with that fear there anyway, or move through that resistance with it in the passenger seat of the car?
Chaos is only chaos until you pull the lens away. And once you pull the lens away, you can see things that otherwise you no longer have to feel, because now you're seeing through your peripherals and you're taking in more data. And at that point, you've got to be a scientist. So I don't want to remove fear from my life. I want to dance through life with fear, because that's going to remind me that I'm alive and that it's worth what I'm doing, because on the other side of fear, I'm going to find my utter and optimal success.
If you were to go back into the entertainment industry as the way that it is today and go back and start dancing again, what mindset would you take with you?
Entertainment really is a very transactional thing. The biggest transformation anybody can take is just having the idea that something is possible. And when that seed is planted, all you have to do is water it. And that water comes from the connections, the proximity, the people, the books that we read, those that have done it before us. Then you have the ability to create and to reap the fruits that you sow.
Welcome to the Jen Gottlieb Show.
Welcome back to the Jen Gottlieb Show. JJ Villar, my dear friend, dancer, author, speaker, coach, incredible human being. I am so grateful that you're sitting here with me today.
I'm so honored to be here with you, because you're my favorite type of people.
Let's go. And we have opposite sides. This is very important, you guys listening. When you meet a new friend and you start to do content together, if you've got opposite sides, like if you don't know what this means, my favorite side of my face is my right side, and he's got the opposite side, so we can just create content together all day. We're a perfect match.
It means you're besties.
We're already winning. But there's so many other things that are bringing us together right now in the world. But I really wanted to have you on the show today for a couple of reasons. Number one, I want to dive into everything you've done in your life and hear your wisdom and have my audience get to hear from you, because we have a lot in common in the way of you started as an artist, you started as a dancer and a performer, and now you're shifting that energy into a different form, into a different purpose, speaking, writing, inspiring, motivating, and maybe then also bringing back a little bit of your initial art. But we'll talk about that later. The other reason why I wanted to have you on the show is to make a very important announcement that we will be making later. So those of you listening, watching, stay to the end, because JJ and I are going to make an announcement that I have not announced yet. Those of you that have been following along on Get Ready With Me and all of my stuff, I've been hinting at something for a while. We're going to tell you what it is at the end of this episode. So stay till the end. I want to start at a very specific moment in time in your life. And I feel like starting at this moment, we can backtrack and then we can move forward and we can move all over the place. But what I was the most curious about when I woke up this morning and I was thinking about having this conversation with you was, I can imagine that you wanted to be a performer for your whole life. Mm-hmm. And you hit, I would say, the top of the game. You performed with J.Lo. You've done Michael Jackson stuff, which is, by the way, my favorite artist in the world. So we also have that in common. And you've done it on the highest level that there is. And then at one moment in time, you decided, even though I love this, I don't want to do it anymore. Can you take me back to that time when you decided to stop dancing and stop performing? Was that a moment? Was that a fizzle out? Was that a really big decision? Or was that a decision that the universe made for you?
This one's tough because it was actually a decision that the universe made for me. Subconsciously, if I think back now in hindsight, it was something that I wanted for a really long time, but I wasn't ready to let go and I wasn't ready to take action on it. Unfortunately, in 2018, I was injured performing for Cirque du Soleil on stage, which is what ended my career. And so I was doing a flip on stage and landed wrong and ended up rupturing two of my vertebrae. And in middle of show, I got up, I just saw stars. I walked off to the wing and collapsed and went to the hospital after that. That was pretty much the end of my career. However, the real reason, I think, is because I manifested it. I spoke it into existence. Even before I really knew what speaking something into existence was. I always said as a young performer that if I were to ever dance for Michael Jackson, I could retire. I could just hang up my dance shoes and call it a day. And although I wasn't blessed enough in my career to dance with Michael because he only had one audition while I was in this industry, which I slept in and missed out on. And it was,
Wait.
Yeah.
Was that for This Is It?
Yes.
We have to talk about that.
Yeah,
we'll get to that one. We have to talk about that.
It's my favorite documentary ever. Okay.
So yeah, I slept in and I missed out that audition. But you know, as life happens for you, I was intended to dance for him, not with him. And I was one of the last few dancers in the world to be selected by not only Cirque du Soleil, but by the Jackson Estate to represent his name. And when I did that for 7 years, I started out as a dancer and then moved into one of the choreographers of the show, as well as one of the coaches for the company. And the last few years, I wasn't happy anymore. And I was just doing it because I was good and it was good money and it was a routine and it's what I thought I was supposed to be doing for the rest of my life. But I just wasn't all there and it wasn't fulfilling anymore. And I didn't know why. And it wasn't until that accident that it took me out of the game and out of that career that I ended up losing myself to a point where now in hindsight, I can look back and say, oh my gosh, I always spoke it into existence. Because although I didn't dance with him, I danced for him. I represented his legacy. And at that point, the universe said, you're done. It's time for you to move on to the stage that we created you for. And I didn't understand that until after I lost myself through that process. So to your question, the universe knew exactly what time it was, and it was time for me to do bigger and better things.
When that happened, on that day, when you had that injury and you realized that you weren't going to dance again, did you have this mindset? Like, oh, thank God this happened because I wasn't happy, I wasn't fulfilled, and now I know I can go be free and I can go do something else, like almost relief? Or were you terrified and pushing against it still and maybe really, really upset? What was your mindset?
I was lost. I mean, imagine doing something for 30 plus years of your life and you have built this identity, you've built this dream life that you thought was destined for you. And at that time, I didn't have the skills and the tools that I have now. I always was into personal development and my own growth and my own journey of self-reflection, but I didn't know how to tap into it on call. And like most people, when we fear something, when we don't understand something, we can lose ourselves because we don't have those answers. And at that point in time, I lost myself. I went down a rabbit hole of self-loathing, self-pity, negativity. You know, I had lost not only my identity, my name, my friends. You find out real quick who your friends are when you're no longer in the spotlight and when you're no longer an artist.
Tell me about that.
I'll get into that in a second because I think that this is really key. You know, and when I lost myself and who I was, you know, not only did it affect my income, I had no income. I was on the verge of bankruptcy. I had absolutely nothing. I couldn't even move like a regular human being. I couldn't go to the restroom. I couldn't sneeze without collapsing. You know, it was atrocious and horrific. And the way I handled it is I made an attempt on my own life. You know, I went to a red carpet event with a few friends and I drank, smoked, and snorted everything I could get my hands on. And I got behind the wheel of my car and I drove to oncoming traffic trying to get hit. And by the grace of God, I was pulled over. Nobody was hurt. I ended up in jail. And the time that I spent in there, once I bailed myself out with a little bit of money that I had, that's when that moment of my life has to change took place. And back to, you find out who your friends are. To this day, majority of my friends that I called my friends then my castmates, those that I really adored, that I would do anything for, bent backwards over. And not that I have any animosity or hatred towards them. I have nothing but love, respect, and admiration for them. It's just where they are, and it's just where the business is. You know, they still don't know the severity of what I went through to become the person I am now.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I love podcasting because we immediately got into this deep discussion of the story that I didn't even know happened to you. So thank you so much for sharing that. After that took place and that happened and you had that rock bottom moment, what was the process of getting to where you are now? Like, what was the first step that you took? Was there something that you discovered, a person that you met, a book that you read? I mean, I can't even imagine, like, what's the first step to coming back from something like that?
Walking home from downtown Las Vegas, I had just gotten out of jail, and I had the little bit of battery I had left, and I scrolled through social media as one does when you get out of jail.
Or whenever.
And so for whatever reason, my Uber app wasn't working. And I guess I was intended to walk home. And on the walk home, I was scrolling through Instagram, and I came across I think it was like a 70% discount ticket for a Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within event on social media. And that ticket was about $697, don't quote me, a couple dollars here or there. And I had about $763 in my account. And as I'm walking home, I prayed to God and I said, God, I have to do something different. What I'm doing is not working. At that point, my life really consisted of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and just, you know, being a very superficial and transactional person. And I took a leap of faith, and with a little bit of money that I had in my account, I bought that ticket. That was November 11th of 2018. The event wasn't until March 14th, 2019. And I was in LA, and I had to figure out how to have less than $100 in my account last from November to March. And I had no idea what I was going to do. And I was crying and I was screaming all the way walking home. And I was just begging God to show me the way. And that was the catalyst of when I knew I was no longer scared of what was going to happen. Before even getting baptized, I surrendered to my higher power, to God, to Jesus, to believe that something was meant greater for me. And with a leap of faith, I just started thinking of, how can I get there versus I'm not going to be able to do this? And my paradigm of how I thought shifted, and everything started changing.
What was the first thing that changed in that time between the event and the moment where you decided you were going to go to the event? That's a long time.
Yeah.
What was the first thing?
I went back to what I knew, street performing. You know, I could barely really move. I could not do a show like I was doing before. My body couldn't stand the pain. It was excruciating because I knew that I was unreliable at any given time. If my back swelled up and a nerve hit the vertebrae, I would collapse like a puppet. You know, and there were times I had, she just recently passed away, but I had a service dog that was trained to help pick me up and carry me from place to place. And I knew that I couldn't take on a contract. I just had to do small stints of something that I knew, and I became what I grew up as, which was a street hustler. I would perform. I would slang tickets for different events. I would connect people and find ways and gaps on how to make money. And I just went to what I knew. And I came from the streets, from gangbanging in LA, from being that street thug. And without doing things that were illegal, I had that same mentality of what I once knew and what I once came from, which is truly where I learned my entrepreneurship skills from. It's how to be able to survive under any circumstance. And I went into that, but the mindset behind it was more of, how can I do this for a greater service to others versus to myself? And that was the biggest shift that started the domino effect that got me to where I'm at now.
That's a big mindset shift, to go from doing everything for yourself and having that mindset to, okay, I lost everything. I'm going to go back to my roots. I'm going to be a street performer. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to buy this Tony Robbins ticket. I'm going to go all in on personal development. And then to shift your mindset to suddenly be all about, how can I help others? The reason I know that that's such a massive mindset shift is because I also had to flip that. And I'm wondering, did that come from having a conversation with someone? Did that come from reading a book? Did that come from podcasting? Did that come from just living life and realizing that, and maybe talking to God and realizing I have to just hand it over? How did you make that pivotal shift from where you were, which sounds like a really dark place that maybe was living very much in your ego, to being the JJ that I know now, which is all of service? I think that there's people listening right now that are like, I want to make that transformation. I want to make that shift, but it's really, really hard. And I'm not telling you to tell them how to do it, but maybe how did you do it?
One of the things that I get asked the most is, how did I transition from where I was to where I am? And one of the blessings that I believe that God gave me is he built me different and stronger than most in a way that I can endure what others would falter on. And I say that not from a place of ego, but a place of gratitude, because that is what allows me to help my clients, my friends, my loved ones get through their hard times. I would rather have God, the universe, whatever anybody wants to call it. I call it God and Jesus. I'd rather have him put me in harm's way, because I know that I have the strength and the grit to be able to get through it, but also to discern what is it that I can pull from it so that I can find a framework that I'm going to pull myself out so I can help others do the exact same. And I've reinvented myself in so many different ways throughout my life that it almost became a formula. And that's why I love helping reinvent people. When people find themselves lost, it really comes down to, in a long-winded way to your question, a choice, a single decision. The choice is instantaneously. How we get there, it takes longer for most, because they have their inner critic, their ego, outer critics, the external world, the different factors that they think of. How is this possible, and is it possible for me? And if you are to remove it like a blank slate or a clean canvas, and we were born in the image of our Creator to create, and if we just trust in that, if you were to sit and have a blank canvas and a magic pen in your hand, what would you create? And when I asked myself that, I realized that I would create a life of abundance, of service, of giving, so that I could live in my purpose, not for my will, but for God's will. And for me, I think that that's the biggest transformation anybody can take, is just having the idea that something is possible. And when that seed is planted, all you have to do is water it. And that water comes from the connections, the proximity, the people, the books that we read, those that have done it before us. Then you have the ability to create and to reap the fruits that you sow.
Yes. Let's talk about fear for a second. Because I was with you. I'm like, yes. You have the idea. You have the pen. You want to create the things that are in your heart. And I know a lot of people listening to this right now, including myself, have desires, things they want to do, things they want to create in the world, transformation they want to make, a reinvention they want to do. They want to become someone totally different than they are now. And I think that it's completely possible. But they say, I'll start tomorrow. They have the resistance. I call it the inner BFF, the inner blocker of future fulfillment. It's like a frenemy. It is not a friend. It is a frenemy. And this frenemy does not want the best for me. They want to sabotage my success. They want to keep me comfortable. And I think we all have that in some form, that fear that comes in and keeps us from taking that step, keeps us from creating that thing, keeps us from making that transformation that you did. How did you overcome? Did you have any fear? If so, how did you overcome it? Or how do you help people that you work with be able to maybe not necessarily overcome it, but take action with that fear there anyway, or move through that resistance with it in the passenger seat of the car?
It's an interesting question. And the old me would answer a pre-recorded response of, I've overcome fear in XYZ way. But this version of me now can honestly say, I don't think we ever get rid of fear, and I don't think that we should. I think that fear is such a beautiful indicator of life. And although there's so many different acronyms of fear, like, false evidence appearing real, and I do believe that what we fear is something that hasn't yet happened. And therefore, if I go back to the analogy of that blank canvas and that magic pen, it's like, what would you draw? Would you go over the fear, under it, through it? Would you walk alongside of it? Would you dance with it? And I believe that if you dance with your fear, if you acknowledge it, if you embrace it, I believe that you can discern the indicator of what it's actually telling you. Fear can be, you haven't studied enough. You haven't tried enough. You haven't spoken enough. And all of these different things that give you that sense of fear, I can't do this. They can do it because they have the means, the resources, the finances, the support. You know, you're only drawing on that canvas what you don't want and you don't want to create or you don't have versus what you do. And I think that that is really the biggest indicator. When you truly sit in your fear, you're only focusing on what you don't have, you don't want, or what isn't possible. And I think that when you are present with fear, which is why I now embrace it, I am okay living with fear because I've turned my inner critic into my ally. I'm able to listen to what is that my internal critic is saying? What is my fear saying? And I can go back and I can have a conversation with it and I can discern what is it that it's truly telling me. Because if I do know and understand and believe, you know, in psychology and how the brain works, that our brain is designed to protect us, if we are talking to ourselves, then who is listening? And if I'm the one listening to myself and my brain is telling me or saying things in order to protect me, then I've got to remove the emotional component of it and actually look at it from a higher perspective. You know, I had a mentor once teach me that they said, chaos is only chaos until you pull the lens away. And once you pull the lens away, you can see things that otherwise you no longer have to feel because now you're seeing through your peripherals and you're taking in more data. And at that point, you've got to be a scientist. So I don't want to remove fear from my life. I want to dance through life with fear because that's going to remind me that I'm alive and that it's worth what I'm doing, because on the other side of fear, I'm going to find my utter and optimal success. That's what I want to achieve. And that's what I hope to aspire to teach all those that I work with or those that may be listening.
I love this so much. I love that analogy, like pulling back the lens, because when you look at something far away from it, it's never that scary. Or when you announce it into the universe, like you talk about something, right? If there's like maybe something that you're not saying out loud, right? It feels so scary and it feels like a lot of anxiety and it feels like, right? Everybody that's listening could probably think about that right now. It's that thing I haven't told anybody that I'm really worried about. But the second that you have that conversation or you pull away the lens and you make it known, I call it like announcing the elephant in the room. This is what's going on. You just allow yourself to be vulnerable. You allow yourself to pull back the curtain and showcase what it is you're afraid of. It takes away the power that fear has over you. Mm-hmm. And you can be in there with the fear. And usually connection always helps with that. So your people that you trust can all know about this fear and be like, we got this. And I love that analogy. Let's dance with the fear. It's so good. Okay. There's a question that I really wanted to ask you, because there are many people that are listening to this right now that are artists or wanting to go back and pursue their art, maybe as a different version of themselves. Maybe they're no longer in that exact same path that they were on when they were pursuing their art back in the day, but they're a new version of themselves. They've reinvented and they want to go back and do that art again. You, JJ, knowing what you know now, if you were to go back into the entertainment industry as the way that it is today and go back and start dancing again and go back and start performing again, what mindset would you take with you? What would you do differently? How would you go about it?
In all sincerity, for me, what's coming up right now, I said earlier that I used to be a very transactional person, and I'm not here to speak negatively of the entertainment industry or past or current friends that are in it. But from my own experience, I can tell you that entertainment really is a very transactional thing. Yes, we as entertainers and artists, we get either on film or on stage and perform and give the best of ourselves so that we can help inspire other people by transpiring through different characters or scenarios that will help shift somebody's world. And at the same time, if you don't have that, it's me, it's all about me, it's what I want to get to, it's what I want to achieve. If you don't have that grit, that grind, that competitive nature in you, you're one of a million. You're a dime a dozen, and that's just entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so to your question, going back to that now, I would take the intentional person who I am now and a being of service. I would be on set, not on worrying about what I'm doing. I would go in and even have better conversations with the grip, the stagehands, the camera crew, the people that are doing the craft services. Like, I would go and see, how can I help them? I wouldn't be the last one to come in on set and the first one to leave because that's all I'm getting paid for. I understand the power of value in adding to your marketplace and connecting with humans, and for me, I lived in that ego place because I was doing something that nobody in my family or in my history that I knew at that time had ever accomplished to that level. And it was great to see myself on TV and on billboards and on stage and this and that. And I got the head, I got the big ego. I got that, persona of I am, amazing. And I wasn't jack shit. And God showed me that the day that I got injured, and so going back to it, my mindset would be of loving, of service, of gratitude, of companionship, of growth and learning, because that's how I'm going to add to my environment, whether it be on a live stage or on a camera set.
Or anywhere in life. I feel like that's the key. I wish I knew this, what we're talking about, back in the day.
Yeah.
If I knew this and if I was this person, I feel like if everyone brought that sense of, I like to use the acronym HOPE, help one person every day. Just coming into a room and figuring out how can I provide value to somebody else. And I do feel like back when I was an actor and when I was performing, it was, if that girl gets that role, it means there's no role for me. It means she cannot get that role. I need to sabotage that girl. I cannot tell her about what audition I'm going to tomorrow, because if she goes, right, that's about, it was all competitive. It was all like me against you, me against you. But imagine what could happen if you just flip that mindset. And I feel like it's the mindset that now we have. Like, if I help you, a rising tide rises all ships, or whatever the quote is. When I help you, you want to help me. And when we help each other, something unbelievably beautiful happens. So if we could go back in time, if I could go back in time at least, and I could do it that way, I bet you I would have been a hell of a lot more successful and a hell of a lot happier.
To that point, and you're so right. If you think about entertainment, like right now, there's mental health is a huge thing in the world in general, but also in entertainment. And if you think of right now, all the wonderful artists we have lost to suicide, all the people that you would think are the happiest on earth are the most miserable. We've had so many dancers that have taken their own life. We have so many great artists, somebody like Robin Williams, who the world would have never known that they are living in misery. And to that point is what I would go back in hopes to go change. And what you said was so striking and impressive, because I'm the type of person that will go to an audition. I would go do my role and it'd be me against me. And even I would change that to being me for me. And if I were to see somebody else that is more suited for that role, regardless of how badly I want it, I would go and root for that person. I've been on both sides of entertainment, both being the person auditioning and being the director booking people. I'd be the person that would say, you know what, that's the person. That person right there, you need to hire them because I know that life happens for you. And I wasn't able to go and audition for This Is It because I slept in. That was my error. But I was designed and meant to be on Michael Jackson 1 in Las Vegas because I got a bigger opportunity that led me here. And this was the stage that I was meant to be on. Those 30 years was my practice, was my training, so that I can come and speak to people and help improve their lives, or at least help guide them in some way, shape, or form, because I'm only just a messenger. I'm just a guide. And if I can do that in this way, then all of the jobs that I didn't get was worth it.
You're listening to The Jen Gottlieb Show.
Let's talk about this stage. I have goosebumps everywhere. You're speaking my language. feel like we have so much in common in this. And I always look back on my life, like all of that performing, it was practice for something that I didn't even know existed. I didn't know this stuff existed. Well, it didn't really. Podcasting didn't at the time, but I didn't know motivational speaking was a thing. I didn't know I could get on stage and say my own words and not have to read somebody else's lines or do somebody else's choreography and be me and help people at the same time. I didn't know I could choose my own stage, create my own stage with technology and everything that we have right now. I had no idea. And now we have this stage. Everybody can create their own stage. We don't have to wait for somebody to pick us. We can do this in our own way. And that is so amazing. And I look back and I'm like, it was all preparing me for this. It was all just practice. And sometimes when we're manifesting, I know that a lot of people think like, oh, well, I didn't get exactly what I was manifesting. I'm like, yeah, but you're probably on your way to something so much better that you don't even know exists yet. As long as you keep following the path, as long as that you keep doing the thing that you love, following, I call it like just following the bliss, following the thing that feels good. And for you, performing, you're meant to perform. But I don't know if you're meant to perform, be it dancing now. Maybe the dancing was just a lead up to this stage that you're on, writing books, being on podcasts, inspiring people with your words, speaking on stages. So tell me about this stage that you're going on right now in this period of your life. And then I would really love to hear also, like we talked about, you're dancing with fear. I always like to ask people that are very successful in what they do and that seem very confident and very, very like, I got this. Is there anything that any fears you're dancing with right now, stepping into this new stage of your life, performing in this different way?
Truest, the most vulnerable answer is I'm afraid of all of this. I'm afraid of not truly living through my full potential. I'm afraid of the ideas that come to my mind. Can I discern whether it's my will or it's God's will? I'm afraid that the messages that I have to help people won't touch the right ones or enough, that it won't be enough. And I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing and guiding somebody in the wrong direction. I'm afraid of wishing that I was further and knowing that my life was designed to be exactly where I'm at. There's a lot of things that I'm afraid of. And as mentioned earlier, my dance with it is like a salsa or a tango. It's the constant back and forth. It's being able to turn around and see it from different perspectives. It's to be able to be free in my own will and to be able to embrace whatever it is, whether it's God, universe, source, connection. It's being able to explore whether my fears are just, like I said, indicators that I need to study more. I need to be more eloquent with my words. I need to listen more to the people that I'm speaking to. I'm okay because I always want to continue to be a student. And I never want to get to the place where I was before. I never want to be the person that I was before, where I thought I knew everything, that I had everything under control. And I believe that control is an illusion. I believe that we can manage ourselves to the best of our ability, but I never want to go backwards to thinking that I am at the top of my game, because that's what got me complacent. That's what got me careless. That's what got me injured. And now I'd rather be able to voice these fears, because I know that there are people out there that, you know, the saying, we wear our hearts on our sleeves. No, we wear our fears on our clothes. We wear our fears in our mirrors, in our day-to-day lives, in our relationships, in our conversations. We don't speak enough about what our fears are so that we can truly connect with somebody, so that we can bless somebody else, to give them the ability to say, I got you. I can help you. And I think that that's the biggest part in where we are as a society that we're missing. And so if my blessing is to be able to be vulnerable, people will call me weak. People will say that I'm not the man's man. And I'm okay with that. Lord, we're living in a world that we can't even define what woman or what man is. This is the least of my problems. And, you know, this isn't to shame or to judge, but this is to acknowledge and be aware that I'm okay speaking my fears, because if that gives somebody listening the strength and the vulnerability to be able to speak on theirs, they can release that emotion that they're holding on to that is preventing them from walking through it and dancing with it.
Can we stop now? I mean, I'm getting really emotional. I go live on Instagram every day. I put my makeup on Instagram every day. And my whole point of it now is not to have the answers to everybody's problems, not to be able to answer the questions perfectly or show them how to do their makeup or like be someone that they can look up to. My whole point of doing it every day, and I feel like this massive responsibility to show up every single day for them, no matter what, is to make them feel less alone. And the more that we can have these conversations and the more we can sit here and, it looks perfect on social media, right? Everybody looks perfect on social media because that's your highlight reel. That's just what it is. You don't post all the times where you're having a hard time or when you're really afraid or when you're struggling. Most people are posting their vacations and when they won in business and when they crushed it on a big stage and when they were on a billboard or when they did a big podcast. So we're scrolling and we're looking at everybody's amazing, wonderful moments, which are real. However, we're not seeing the fear that you just shared. We're not necessarily seeing the real stuff that's really happening behind the scenes to everyone, even the most successful, even the people that look like they have it all together. And I think that it's so powerful to have platforms. And I'm just going to say, like, yay for us, like we're doing this, but I want more people to do this. Platforms where we can make people feel a little less alone in the realness that's really going on. And I want to honor you for what you just shared, because you're doing this in a big way. You've become unbelievably successful in the entertainment industry. You now are going to become, and already are, becoming very successful in the speaking and coaching and book industry. And here you are saying, you know what, I'm deathly afraid of it. And it can be, and I believe that it will be for most of us. And of course, the more we do it, the more confident we become. The more we dance with fear, the more comfortable we become in dancing with the fear. Maybe not becoming fearless, but being like, come on, fear, we can tango.
Yeah.
Right? I'm obsessed with this conversation and I want to thank you and I want to honor you and I want everybody to make sure that, like, if you're listening to this in the car or wherever you're listening to it, I want you to just take this back and rewind it, and I want you to listen to that one section where JJ went off and talked about his fears. Anytime you're feeling alone, anytime you're feeling afraid, anytime you're feeling like an imposter or you can't take that first step or, oh my God, am I the only person in the world that feels this way?
I'd love to add to that. You mentioned about social media, and I really believe that I don't have the followers I could have because I do post the good, the bad, the ugly. My social media, I've made it a point to not make it a highlight reel, but to the real light reel. And that's what I do. If anybody goes through my stuff, you'll see some of the lowest of lows and the highest of highs. I don't hide it. I don't sugarcoat it. I've lived my whole life wearing masks, as an entertainer, and you can relate to this. We put on masks every day in the entertainment world, but even as what I would call civilians, we wake up and we choose what mask we're going to wear depending on who we're going to see and where we're going to be. And I've learned that all of these masks is what makes us our authentic self. And if you can show that, you will build true following. It might not be massive, but one of my mentors also shared with me when I thought that I wasn't having a big enough impact. He said, have you ever changed one person's life that you know of? And I said, absolutely. Do you know how many people's lives they changed because of that change you created? And I said, no. He said, so you have no idea the ripple effect that you've created, and you're looking to get this whale. But if you would have paid attention to the little ant, you would have seen that there's a lot more power in that than the whale that you might never get. And now I pay attention to those that are listening, the few that are there listening in, because I know there's a ripple effect.
Get outside of your comfort zone and into your best life, one small step at a time.
Let's talk about the book really quick, because JJ walks in and I'm like, well, is there anything that you want to specifically talk about? He's like, no, we'll just have a conversation. And then all of a sudden he whips out this book that I didn't even know he wrote. No clue. We've talked about so many things over the past couple of weeks that I had no clue that you wrote this beautiful book. And Next Life Next. And it's so appropriate for what we're about to announce in a minute.
Yes.
So I want you to talk about the book for a second. What's the book about? What initiated you writing a book? I know you have a writing partner in this book.
So this, I have to give kudos. This would not be in my hands right now if it wasn't for my beautiful best friend and co-author, as well as the owner of the publishing company that basically had this idea in her. And she asked me, she goes, I would love to write a book with you. She's like, she loves my story. We're just besties, like from birth, I think. And I was deathly afraid. I had only written or been a part of a collaborative book that went bestseller on Amazon, but it was like one of those where you write a chapter and, you know, I didn't do the work. I didn't know anything about book writing, let alone writing my own book. And she came up and, you know, we had a lot of similarities where in our lives we've had to rebuild ourselves. And we are right now in the what's next of our life. And both of us were able to discern what are these different tools that we've done that have helped us and shaped us to get from where we were and being in that life that we despised or no longer wanted to be a part of. And we figured out what are those steps that helped us get to the place where we are now and where we're going to be. And so that's what the concept of Next Life Next is. This is going to be one of many books. It's going to be a series. And this is intended to be that book that is on that random place, on that random table that probably people don't really know about or hear about. But it's that gem that when you're in that place where you just are sick of being sick and tired, and somebody says, hey, I found this somewhere, like coffee book or that one that was tossed away. And you pick it up and it's the catalyst to creating your next life next. And so it's going to be released. We're hoping right now, we're going through all the final edits. This is the prototype, if you will. We're hoping that it's going to be released on Amazon and all the platforms in 3 months. And we wrote it for our moms. She wrote it for her mom. I wrote it for my mom. You know, I love empowering both men and women, and mostly women, because my mom to me is my everything, and she's the one woman I could not reach. I could not help. I could not affect change with all of this psychology and personal development skills and all these modalities that I've, you know, spent years on learning and transforming other people's lives. She was the one person I couldn't help. And I wrote that like she did for our moms and for other women and people, men included. But the idea was that maybe one day my mom would come across that book and read it in her own time and disassociate the fact that her son wrote it. So maybe it'd be a different ear or a different voice in her ear.
I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit for this book. I don't think this is going to be a random throwaway book that people just find. Like, oh, I found this somewhere. Who knows what it is? But I think that this is going to be a very well-known book that people are intentionally giving people because it's changing lives. Because it's written with ultimate service. You wrote this for people, specifically for your mom. I love books that are written like that. Like, you wrote it with your mom in mind. I want to help this person. But also it's what I loved is this is my experience. I looked back at what I wish I would have known of the things that I used, the strategies, whether I knew I was using them or not, to transition into the next iteration of my life. And here it is. I wrote it all out for you so you can try it too. Take it or leave it. Yeah. Those are the types of books I love. So I don't think it's just going to be like, oh, what's this random book? I don't know. I think it's going to be, oh my God, did you read Next Life Next yet?
You know,
this is like, come on, let's speak that into existence, yes, please.
I'm going to thank you for correcting my language, because I do need to speak into existence what I wanted to truly be. And, you know, in reality, I also know what the book industry is. You know, when I started writing this book and getting into the world of authors, I knew that there are formulas where people can become Amazon bestsellers, New York Times bestsellers. You can pay for it. You know, and this isn't to judge or shame anybody, because, you know, you need a certain perceived value in order for people to want to listen. And I understand that. And the reason why I spoke this until right now, which I'm going to do it from this point on, I say that because I would have been the person that wanted to make millions of dollars and have the notoriety and have the titles and this and that. That isn't why I wrote the book. It no longer is. It is to truly create the change, even if it's for one person, that'll cause the ripple effect of change. But to your point, you're absolutely right. It will be a book that is intentionally passed on to people so that it affects the masses. And that's what I'm going to put out into the universe.
Thank
Words
you.
of power.
I'm glad we shifted that. All right, good.
You're right.
So get excited about Next Life Next. Okay. So I'm nervous about what we're about to talk about. I am nervous.
I'm excited.
I feel nauseous. This is the first time my audience is hearing what I'm about to do. So this is a really y'all, like dancing with fear.
Let's get into
we
it.
are dancing with fear right now.
You guys have no idea, so I'm so excited to be a part of this.
Emotions have been all over the map for this podcast.
Yes.
This is a good one. All right. So, all right, I have to start from the beginning of where this started,
Yes,
and then I'm
please.
going to talk about where we brought JJ in, and why I'm so grateful that he's excited. And then he can talk about whatever he wants to say about it. So, those of you that know me, that followed along my journey, maybe read my book, Be Seen. I'm not even going to talk to the camera. I'm going to talk to JJ because most of you are listening to this in your ears anyway. You know that I grew up wanting to be an actress, wanting to be a performer. I've been performing since I was 2. If you came over to my house, I was putting on a show for you. Full stop, always, no matter what. I pursued theater in the way that I thought you had to pursue theater, right? I'm going to go to school for musical theater. I'm going to go move to New York City, and I'm going to be a waitress, and I'm going to audition every day, and I'm going to wait for someone to pick me. And I knew in my mind, I remember being 5 years old on a stage singing The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow, Annie, my dream role that I never got to play, but I sang the song in a show, and looking out into the audience. I was wearing this red leotard and these bedazzled overalls in this children's theater group, and thinking, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like at 8 or however old I was like, there is no better feeling than this. And seeing my mom and my dad in the audience, and they're looking at me, and everybody's just taken away to this other vortex that we're all in together. And I'm just on the stage. I've just loved it my whole life. And so I thought my purpose is to perform. So those of you that read the book, you know I went on that journey. I moved to New York. I manifested my dream role in The Wedding Singer, the Broadway national tour that I did. Traveled all around the country, and realized that traveling around the country, getting paid not very much, doing 10 shows a week was not my favorite life. No matter how much I loved when the curtain went up and I was singing and dancing and doing what I loved to do, JJ, you can probably relate. The life around that was not my favorite life.
Nope.
I was like, this was not what I was envisioning. This was not it. So long story short, you all know what happened, or if you don't know, read the book. But I was on a heavy metal talk show for 5 years on VH1, pretending to be somebody that I wasn't for a very long time. And it got to a point where I was like, do I really want to continue this life waiting for someone to choose me? Do I really want to continue this life wearing this mask and being whatever you need me to be in order for you to pay me to do what I love to do? So I quit acting. I decided I'm going to stop doing this right now, and I'm going to go just in survival mode, and I'm going to become a personal trainer that turned into entrepreneurship, and it got me eventually to where I am today. But JJ, you'll probably be able to agree with me that when performing is in you, it's in you. Mm-hmm. It's in you. And it came out for me in this amazing way now where I get to be a speaker, and I get to perform and choose my own words, and I get to do what I love and what I always thought my purpose was in a way that feels so much more aligned and so much better to me and so much more fulfilling. And I make a hell of a lot more money doing it too. So it's a lot more fun in that way. And I think I make a bigger impact as well. However, I have this dream that I still have not manifested. And I'm going to tell you all this now. I always, alongside being Linda in The Wedding Singer, my other dream role that I always said I was going to do was I wanted to play Roxy Hart in Chicago. And I remember I lived in New York City for 17 years, and I would walk through Times Square on purpose to walk past the Chicago billboards. And they would always have the celebrities come in and play Roxy Hart. You know, like they'll have like the D-list celebrities or the, E-list, or the celebrities come in and play Roxy for like 3 months. I'd be like, here's what I'm going to do. This is my plan. I'm going to go off and I'm going to do something completely different. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to become really successful, and they're going to call me and they're going to have me come play Roxy. And that's going to be my big return to the stage. And I would visualize myself in the like black lace leotard doing the Fosse moves. And I still to this day will always do walks. Even now, before I had this grand idea, I would just listen to Chicago and sing Roxy, like while I'm walking down the street. If you live in Fort Lauderdale, you've probably seen me like a crazy person lip syncing and performing on the sidewalk. And I had this thought while I was doing that recently, and it was like, Jen, this is in you. And if you don't ever accomplish this goal, this weird, crazy dream that you have, are you going to regret it? And I thought to myself, yes, like this is something I really want to do. But I know more than anybody else, if I don't take action on doing this thing, it's not going to happen. Like I could visualize this all day long, but if I'm not singing and dancing and practicing or auditioning or putting myself out there in some way, shape, or form, how am I going to have this experience that I want to have happen? So I haven't sang, opened my mouth to sing, not even in the shower, not even at all, since Wedding Singer, which was probably 12 to 15. I don't know. I'm very bad at timing, but like 15 years ago, maybe. And I haven't actually taken a dance class in probably 10 years. And the thought of going back and doing the thing that I used to be really good at that I'm probably not so good at anymore is terrifying to me. And that's exactly why I made this decision. And I said, what if I did something different? What if I went back to the thing that I used to do and I did it differently, which is why I asked you this question. What if I went back to performing with everything that I know now about entrepreneurship and manifestation and dedication and discipline and helping one person every day and providing value to people and having an abundant mindset instead of a scarcity mindset? What if I went back to that now, knowing what I know, and created my own stage instead of waiting for someone to pick me? So I had this crazy idea. I'm like, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to go take singing lessons again. I'm going to go take dancing lessons again. And I'm going to bring you all along for the journey, and you're going to watch. And not only am I going to take lessons, but we're actually going to be choreographing numbers from Chicago. So whether I make it onto the Broadway stage or not, I'm going to create my own experience in my own way. And it's going to be all to help somebody, to bring you along the journey, to show you that you can still do it, that you can take action on your dream in a different way, that you can go back to being a beginner, that you can go back and do the damn thing messy, and that hopefully I can inspire you guys to do that for you for whatever it is. So I called JJ because I needed a choreographer. I needed someone to teach me how to dance again. And I don't think there could be a more perfect person to go on this journey with me than you. So I'll stop talking now because this is my interview with JJ, not my podcast. But this is what we're doing. This is going to be the ultimate experiment in manifestation, in taking action before you're ready, in going back and being a beginner and humbling yourself to go back to the thing that you used to do and doing it in a different way, and proof that you can create your own opportunities. And we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll get what I want. Maybe I'll get something so much better, or maybe we'll just have a hell of a lot of fun doing it.
I'm so glad that you called me for this opportunity, and for a couple of reasons. Because one, since the first initial phone call, so much has been showing up in my life. And I think that this is going to be more than just the journey on getting back on stage. I think that the example of what's going to show to your followers and people all around the world, or anybody that watches, is what it takes to be able to just say yes rather than run away and say no. Whether it's being somebody that you used to be or doing something completely different and something totally new. And, I had the blessing of being coached by Les Brown for a little bit, and he taught me something that has stuck with me, and I teach this all the time. He said to me, you need to stop following your passion and start listening to your gift. And I didn't understand it at first. And then he gave me a couple of examples, and he asked me to go through my entire timeline of my life, through all the different chapters and the different identities that I've taken on, and see what the golden thread is between all of them. And two golden threads. One I did not see until you made that phone call. My golden thread that I had seen throughout my life, from, being a street gangster and being a high school teacher, a dancer, being in accounting, and being a speaker and an author now, all of that, my golden thread was coaching. I always coached people. In fact, you can go online and you could see things I was doing 14, 15 years ago, where I was doing artist development, and in me developing these artists was teaching them about life through their exercises and through their warm-ups and things like that. And so my common thread was coaching people and helping people live happier, healthier, more abundantly. But the second golden thread that came about was when you and I started talking about this, and you asked if I would do this. And your words of thinking that I wouldn't take this on, which had it been anybody else for any other reason, I wouldn't have, because I didn't think that I needed to go back to entertainment just yet. When we had that conversation, the second golden thread was that I was born and have always been a performer. Always. It's in me. It's in our DNA. Much like you, it is in me. And when you made that call, I got so geeked out. I started going back and doing my research, and you have to research. It's not, I've done Fosse, I've done Broadway, off-Broadway events, and I've choreographed Broadway style shows. But you have to be a master of your craft, and you have to be a student. And so I started going back and looking at old videos and putting it back into my body, because I want to be able to give you my best. And in that, it's your ability to test yourself and put yourself out there already created the ripple effect. Because something that most people never knew or don't know about me is that although I started in entertainment, I started in theater, I went into dance, but my biggest goal that never came to fruition was being a actor on the silver screen, much like a John Leguizamo, or starring alongside of an Al Pacino, or some of the greatest people like Robert De Niro. And you doing this for you, and me having the honor to help you make that a reality, sparked off, I can do it too. And whether or not that will come in my near future, right now, I know it is part of my future. And where that is going to align in my trajectory, first, let's get you going and let's see what's going to happen, because what we're going to do with you has already inspired me. And I know that if it can inspire me, it's going to inspire all of you.
I'm so excited. All right. So this was the ultimate accountability. We are doing this. You heard it here first. There's going to be lots of videos for you to watch of the entire experience and how we do this together. I'm so grateful that, this is what a great example, like me really stretching. And it was scary as hell for me to call you. I was terrified, because I was like, when I make this call, it means I'm in. I have to do this. And I when I came here to do this podcast, I was like, all right, here's another step where if I say this on camera, it means I have to do this. I'm in. Like, it's all these little accountability moments. And believe me, I'm writing as I go, like all of these things that I'm doing to hold myself accountable to doing the damn thing. Because, in my business and in my work, I help people take action on what it is they want to do, and that big dream that they have, whether it's starting the business or going back and doing the big screen, acting. I don't know. Maybe you'll be next. Maybe this will be a thing, but you never really know what you're going to create. And the only way that you're not going to create it is if you don't take action. Yep. And it's all these little baby, tiny little nuggets that I'm doing in order to get myself there. We've got our first dance class that you've already made me nervous about. I ordered my dance shoes. They have arrived. This is happening. So I'm so grateful that you guys will be along for the journey. And really, man, I feel so blessed to have you here, just to have this conversation. I learned so many things about you that I didn't know. I've been unbelievably inspired and changed just by the stories you've shared with me, and your willingness to be vulnerable and open. You're so courageous. You're amazing. I hope that everybody here follows JJ, gets the book when it comes out. Just share it with everybody how they can find you. Where's the best place for them to go?
Best place is Instagram. My handle is The Real JJ Villar. Somebody had my name, so I'm The Real JJ Villar. Or you can also find me on jjvillarcoaching.com. That's my website. So those are the two places where you can find me the most.
Thank you, JJ. I love you. Can't wait to see you soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching The Jen Gottlieb Show. See you next time.